Have you ever written some Python code and thought, hey, this is pretty cool, but how do I get it out into the world so other people or other apps can actually use it? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that exact process. We're turning a simple function on your computer into a live, functioning web service. All right, let's dive right in. Here's the game plan. We're going to start with a piece of code you've probably written a million times. Then, we'll stack each new piece on top, FastAPI, then Uvicorn, and finally UV, to see exactly how they all click together to bring your code online. So, where do we even begin? Well, it all starts with one simple building block, a plain old Python function. It's just sitting there, on your computer, ready and waiting to do its one little job. And look, this function is perfect if you're on my computer. Any other code in the same file can call it, and sure enough, it gets a nice hello world message back. But that's the problem, right? It's completely isolated from the outside world. It's trapped. And that right there is the big question we're answering today. How do we take this perfectly good function and, poke a hole through the internet so that a browser or a phone app or some other service can actually use it? And that is where our first tool, FastAPI, enters the picture. Think of it as the magic wand that builds a bridge from your local code straight to the web. It basically gives our little function network superpowers. Now, here's a really important distinction. FastAPI isn't a server, not by itself. It's a framework. It's a toolkit, really, with a set of rules that knows how to speak the language of the web. Its main job is to get our Python function all dressed up and ready for online communication. And this, right here, is where the magic happens. With just one little line of code, that decorator, the @app.get// thing, FastAPI just wraps around our original function. It doesn't change what our function does, not at all. But what it does do is link it to a URL. And boom, it's not just code anymore. It's a web endpoint. But wait, there is more. On top of that, FastAPI handles a ton of the boring, tedious stuff for you, totally automatically. It checks incoming data to make sure it's valid. It generates this awesome interactive API documentation so other developers know how to use your code. And it just gives you a really clean, standard way to manage all those web requests and responses. Okay, cool. So FastAPI has our function all prepped and ready for the web. But something still needs to actually run the code, right? Something needs to be listening for all that internet traffic and actually serving up the responses. We need an engine. And that engine is Uvicorn. It's an ASGI server. Now, ASGI sounds complicated, but all it really means is that it's a super fast, modern type of Python web server that can handle a whole bunch of connections at the same time. So if FastAPI preps the code, Uvicorn is the powerhouse that actually runs it and puts it out there on the network. And this is my favorite way to think about it, because it just makes everything click. FastAPI provides the detailed, step-by-step instructions. It's the recipe for our dish. But Uvicorn? Uvicorn is the actual cook in the kitchen, taking the orders and making the food based on that recipe. And Uvicorn isn't just any cook, okay? This cook is a superstar. It's asynchronous, which means it can juggle thousands of orders at the same time without breaking a sweat. It listens for those orders on a specific port on your server, and it manages the whole process, from the moment an order comes in to the moment the finished dish goes out the door. Now we've got our recipe from FastAPI and our amazing cook, Uvicorn. But before our cook can start making anything, they need a clean, well-organized kitchen, right? Every tool, every ingredient has to be in exactly the right place. And that's where our final tool, UV, comes in. UV is our project organizer. It's this incredibly fast tool that takes care of the entire setup of our project. It makes sure all the libraries we need, like FastAPI and Uvicorn, are installed and ready to go. Basically, it makes sure our development kitchen is set up perfectly every single time. So, why is this such a big deal? Well, UV creates an isolated virtual environment, which is like giving every recipe its own separate kitchen. This is huge because it stops ingredients from one project from messing with another and causing chaos. It installs what we need, and then it locks the specific versions of those tools so our recipe works exactly the same way, every time, no matter who's cooking it or where. And when you lay it all out like this, the whole thing just makes perfect sense, doesn't it? UV is the manager that sets up the kitchen. FastAPI is the recipe we're all following. Uvicorn is the cook who actually makes the food. And that HTTP request from a user, that's just the customer placing an order. So let's do it. Let's put it all together and trace a single customer order, a single HTTP request from the moment it's placed all the way through our system and back out to the customer. Okay, here we go. It all starts when a user's browser sends a request to our server. Uvicorn, our cook, is listening and immediately catches that request. Uvicorn then passes that order over to our FastAPI app. FastAPI, our recipe book, looks at the URL to find the exact right recipe, which is our decorated Python function. Then our original little function runs, returning hello world. That result is then passed back through FastAPI, then through Uvicorn, which serves it all the way back to the user's browser as a complete response. And just like that, you've done it. By combining these three incredibly powerful tools, you have officially bridged the gap between a piece of code that was just trapped on your computer and a real live service that can be accessed from anywhere in the world. You know, this exact process is the foundation for so much of the modern web, from simple little websites to incredibly complex AI applications. So the only real question left is, now that you know how to put your code on the network, what amazing thing are you going to build next?